Hi everyone. It's pretty exciting to be here. Too exciting actually. I'm Willy. I work for Melon and I use Python and Django. And of course, you already know I pretty much love testing. So that's how I chose the topic for today. First of all, I'd like to start with a question for you. How many of you are writing tests instead of counting on a QA, maybe? Raise your hands. How many of you are writing tests? Okay. How many of you love writing tests, or maybe not love, but enjoy doing it? Okay, 4. That's good. Cool. Maybe I won't really spend too much time on topics like how important testing is, because I hope that everyone knows it, and I wouldn't spend too much time talking about whether it takes too much time of ours, whether our clients are happy with us writing tests, whether our team lead is happy with us writing tests, or PMs or whoever. So I believe that if you are asking the question, should we write tests, then you're not really asking the right question. I think the right question is, do we write enough tests? You are the developers, right? So they pay you to write code. And tests are code, indeed. So if production goes down, it's not client's fault, right? You're the one to blame, to put it simply. You're the one to blame. Decision of writing tests is entirely yours. You don't have to ask for permissions, because you'll be the one to blame when production is down, and you'll be the one who have to fix it. So make your own choice. I would like to ask you, maybe not just the 4 people who write tests, but others as well. Can you think of good reasons not to write tests? Sorry? Time consuming, laziness, okay. Okay, good reason number 1. You hate your colleagues and you hate yourself. Reason number 2, you are bored, you don't have plans for the weekend, and the best thing you can do is just to push something to production without testing it. So I can guarantee 100% that something will go wrong and your weekend will be full with joy, definitely. And reason number 3, the most important one. If you create the perfect code ever, you test it fully, you might not have a job soon, because it's going to be too perfect and clients won't need you. That's bullshit, of course. You don't have a good reason not to write tests. Just write your tests. It's for your own good. When you ask yourself whether you have enough tests in your project or you don't, you can use this quick checklist so you can answer this question. So clearly, if you have a lot of bugs on production, clients are complaining every time when the weekend comes. Definitely you don't have enough tests on production. Actually, you don't have enough tests for the code, and that's why production is failing. If you try to refactor your code, if you try to add something to it, or to remove something from it, or to just change a functionality that you have worked on, or someone from your colleagues, if you feel uncomfortable doing it, that's maybe because you don't have tests which have your back and show you whether you broke something. Because if you have tests, and if they show you broke something, that's actually a good thing. You know that you broke it, so you can fix it easily. If you do have tests, but they fail at random places. Like, for example, you run it in the morning, everything works fine, and just before you go home, you run it again, but tests are failing. Well, you have another problem, so you do not have reliable enough tests. So you should check them. If you have a new person in your team and you want to get them up to speed, you want to show them the full code base, and if you provide them with the tests, they should probably know more about your code, where it breaks, where, if you have a simple function, how it works, because you gave it a few lines of parameters, and this function will return a specific result. It's pretty easy to read what this function is doing, but if you don't have tests, you have to explain to those people every single line, which is not really cool, right? And tests help you document your project in the best way possible. Try to break your code. Just choose a single line, put division by 0, or just break it intentionally. If you then run your tests and nothing screams, if you don't have red lines everywhere, maybe it's just because you didn't test enough. You didn't cover this line with tests, and that's a problem. So write some more tests in that cases. So I'm definitely not here to tell you and to teach you how to do stuff. I'm pretty sure you know more about your area than I do. But actually, how many of you are writing on Python or use Django? 4, 5, maybe 6, 7. Whoa, it's growing. Okay. Did you learn it just now? Okay. So I'm gonna tell you about some useful tips and tricks that helped me a lot when I have to write tests, and I should do it quickly without losing too much energy and wasting too much time. So let me go through them step by step. One of the most time-consuming and maybe annoying tasks is to actually create your test world and your test scenarios. So creating fixtures is usually not the easiest task you can take. Let's say we have an API endpoint whose main job is to give you a list of all the appointments you have in your database. In order to test it, you want to just simply create 10 objects, and what we do is, let's say we loop from 1 to 10, and we just create a single object for every iteration. We're not lucky enough, though, because when we try to run our tests, we realize that it's not that easy to just create a simple appointment. Appointment has required fields, which cannot be knowable, and we need to provide some values for them. So, okay, we say, cool, I'm just gonna fill in the required fields because it told me down there, you need to provide start time. It cannot be no. So I'm just going there, fixing my lines and adding some more information. And I try again, but of course, we're not living in a perfect world, so we have another problem because appointment needs a client instance to exist. We say, okay, we know how to deal with this stuff, and we create another client, so we are still trying to create just 10 simple objects, you know. But when we try again with this line, we think that we've provided everything needed, but that's not the true, because client has other required fields, and you have to provide them as well. So I got too excited, sorry. Yeah, so instead of going through this over and over again, we just need to decide on our tools a bit more carefully, if I can say it that way. Model Bakery is the tool that I'm using to save me from all this struggle. It is a nice tool which allows you to create, in a quick and easy way, fixtures and objects, test objects in your database, and it does handle relationships. So the same example, you want to create 10 objects, and this is how you do it using Model Bakery. You are telling Model Bakery, just give me 10 objects of this type. And that's all you get. Like, you don't care about other relationships, you don't care about required fields or foreign keys or anything else. Don't get afraid from this. I'll just explain it quickly. So if we just ask Model Bakery, give me an appointment instance, Model Bakery will take care of all of the fields by providing the correct data. So the start time, which it was complaining about a minute ago, will be a pretty decent datetime object. And not only this, but if I check what is the client for this appointment, it is a real living client with a birthday, a name, everything that is needed. And we didn't really care about how it was created. We know it's there and we can move on. Just a single line of code. Well, yeah, you will say, this is not a really readable name. So, and also this person was just born this year, so maybe it's not really realistic, but it's good enough for us, right? And still, if we want to change something into this, we could do that, and we could write the so-called recipes. If we say we would like our clients to have decent names, readable ones, and maybe to be born somewhere in the 90s, this is what we do. We say to Model Bakery, I'm going to write your recipe. When you create a client, put a decent name, one of these, for example, and give it a birthday from the 90s. So next time we want to create such a client, it's even simpler. We just say, using the recipe for client in 90s, which we just defined here, just give me a client. And then if we check the data, if we check the information, they have a name, one of the listed ones, and they have a decent birthday somewhere in the 90s. So that's all we got. It's realistic and it's helpful for us because we don't really need to define this every time. Every time you want to create just set of clients or just set of appointments, you can simply use the recipes and that's all. The old name of Model Bakery is Model Mummy, but they changed the name at some point, so you might know it under the old name as well. It's the same package, just a different name. Another useful tool, which saves me a lot of time, is called freezegun. So freezegun is a pretty nice tool that helps me traveling through time. And I'll explain what I mean because it sounds crazy. This is how you import it, and it is actually, freeze-time is actually a nice decorator, which could be applied to a function or to class method. And once you apply it, everything inside of this scope under the decorator is happening in January 2012. In other cases, you can, just select the time, either in the past or in the future, when you want to implement something, to execute your code. You can also use it as context manager. Maybe here would be either clearer or more complex to understand, but if you just code datetime now at any specific time, it will be the current moment. So it will be 14th of May, and it's working as you expect. But if you execute datetime now inside of the frozen time, it will be January 2012. You would say, how is that helpful? So it is helpful when you have to test something which is time specific. For example, if you have to create a function which tells you, hi, happy Monday, if it's Monday, and then if you call it on Friday, it should say, hi, happy Friday. How would you test it? Would you test it on Monday, then maybe wait for a while, then wait it for Friday, set up an alarm because you have to remind yourself you should test it on Friday and then test it on Friday, and then you're good to go deploying on Friday, maybe. Yeah, and going to production on Friday, it doesn't really work, right? So that's a specific case where I would definitely use freezegun to help me with this. This is our function, which is greeting you on Monday and on Friday. On any other day, it would just say hi. And I would like to test it, so I'm going to use freeze time. I'm going to select a specific Monday, for example, from this year. And I'm going to write a test asking my function to be called and checking whether it says Happy Monday. If I have to test for the Friday, I would do exactly the same thing. So 18th of March is a specific Friday from this year. It's my birthday. And if I say hi, if I call my say hi function with this name, I would expect it to say Happy Friday, because it doesn't know about my birthday. Otherwise, it would say Happy Birthday. Anyways, so yeah, to be more thorough, you should also write tests for the other examples, and you should test with other days as well. And you don't have to wait for Friday in order to test your code. I would expect you to say, well, you know what, this is not really a good idea, and to say that this is not following the dry principle, because I'm repeating myself. I just copy-pasted 3 times the same line. No one? Okay, well, it's not a good idea. Like, this is wrong. So I came up with 3 separate test cases by just copy-pasting one of them and changing the lines, which was kind of quick. But next time I have to fix something, I'll probably have to do it 3 times. So it's not a good idea. And here's another tool which I would use in these cases. Instead of writing 3 tests, I want to run just one single test and to give it 3 sets of data to use. Parameterize, I think, but it's hard to pronounce, so sorry. So pytest has this nice decorator parameterize, which allows me to do the following thing. Instead of writing 3 lines of code, I will just define my specific test case to call my function and to expect a specific result. And then I will give it just different test lines, if I can say it that way. So I would like to test it with this date. If I freeze the time on 14th of March and call my function with Jane, I would expect my function output to be Happy Monday Jane. Same with the other dates. And here I have just list of sets of data, but one single test case. Now, if I run those tests, I would have the full information needed. First of all, pytest will show me a separate line and separate statistics for all of the 3 runs. So it will tell me which ones passed fine and which ones failed. If some of the tests fail, that won't really stop the rest of the tests to go on. And I will have full detailed information. I'm not sure if it's readable, but yeah, you can, you can try it. You have detailed information about what went wrong in the specific lines. And again, the rest of the cases won't be harmed from the failing one. Who's using breakpoints in your code? A lot of people, yeah. Have you ever tried to save the world without a breakpoint? No? Okay. Well, yeah. Technically speaking, when you have to solve a complex problem, you actually have to remember every single thing to handle. So you have tons of data. Let's say if you have to save the world, you have to take in mind all the problems in the world, all the facts in the world. It should all be inside your head, which is not an easy job to do unless you're probably Sherlock Holmes. But if you're using a breakpoint to fix a code and to find a bug, why not using it to actually create this code? Here's what I would suggest. You know you have to save the world, so you just create simple function which will save the world, and you put a breakpoint inside of it without even implementing the function. Then you create a simple test, again, simple, and in this test, you use your time just to prepare all the possible data that you might need inside this function, and you might need to pass these parameters in your function, but use the chance to write a test and to create the scenario, to create the world in which you're gonna implement everything. Now, if you run the tests, what you get is, you get to the breakpoint, and you actually get it inside your function, which you're now gonna create. The luxury you have is the option to actually play with all these parameters here. So you can play with the numbers, you can play with the information, you don't have to remember it, you don't have to remember any possible property or a function that you can call. Everything is there, so you can just experiment and try, and once you know what you want to write, you can just transfer it into a content, into a code. So yeah, these are kind of my favorite ones among the tricks and testings. I'm pretty sure that even though you're not using Django and Python, even though you're using some different technology, if you try to test, you'll probably get to the same or at least similar problems, and if you have to fix them, if you have to handle those, you'll most probably find libraries which will help you to do so. In your language, they might be different, but the help they provide is kind of the same. So just find them and make your lives easier. That's all.
Questions? Yeah. Hello. I have a question. I want to ask you which type of tests need to be the largest part of your code base. Talking about unit tests, integrated tests, functional tests, and so on.
Which part should be the biggest one? Is that your question?
Yeah.
Okay, well, I believe unit tests should be maybe the most important part, so you should spend most time on writing unit tests, just because unit tests are the small pieces which build your entire application. So if you write the unit test, maybe that will be the most of the testing. Then it will be even simpler and less time consuming to write the rest of it. But if you check the units and they're working, most probably functional tests and the integration tests will just show the same, or at least there will be less bugs to find. So the amount of the other tests might be probably less, I don't know. But yeah, try and let me know.
Okay, thank you very much for the inspiring and very exciting talk. I wanted to ask you, when you do testing, how seriously you are considering the security threats and problems? And I got one idea, maybe the freezegun is quite cool, can be used to maybe avoid some kind of security attacks, like replay attacks and that kind of stuff. Have you thought about that? Thank you.
Thanks for the question. Well, yeah, security is definitely something that you should test from every perspective possible. Sometimes security is kind of hard to test, probably because if you don't handle, for example, user communication, user authentication yourself, you're probably speaking to another service, so most of those things are kind of mocked. But if you put enough effort into, just mock only what is outside of your system, but make sure that everything that works inside of your system is secure. So, however, even if the testing of this part is hard, it is important, so definitely invest time into it, because, well, if you, if there is a hacker who just ruins your life, you might have every other test possible, and you might be just saying, yeah, I have my test coverage today, but they broke in, so whatever.
Anybody else? We still have t-shirts.
Find me after the talks if you're happy to share what you're using, even if it's a different technology. I would be really keen to hear it. So find me after the talk and we can speak more.
Please, a round of applause.